change the way you think. Impactful investigations that change the way you see.
How many times has your car been stolen?
5 times.
Yeah. What? Do you think that you're a responsible owner of tigers?
I damn sure do.
I love them.
Heartwarming moments that change the way you feel.
I feel amazing.
Now available in a place that changes the way you watch TV. Inside Edition, streaming.
Don't let your Thanksgiving go up in flames. While many people are choosing to deep fry their turkeys instead of sticking them in the oven for hours, firefighters want home cooks to be very careful. The first rule of safety is to completely thaw out your frozen bird.
You don't want to drop a frozen turkey inside of that boiling oil. You also don't want that boiling oil to be any excessive temperature. We had ours at 400 degrees.
Firefighters in Virginia show just how quickly a grease fire can get out of control. They also say not to overfill the fryer with oil so it doesn't spill out when you put the turkey in. Another mistake to avoid is placing your deep fryer on a wooden deck. The fire chief says to stand it on concrete or in the grass and keep the gas tank at a safe distance.
You want to make sure that all safety mechanisms are still in place and that the gas is away from your fryer.
When done properly, a fried turkey can be a delicious treat for all of your guests. But nothing will spoil your holiday more than having to call the fire department should things go wrong.
As Thanksgiving approaches, doctors are warning of a triple threat due to COVID, RSV, and the flu. And when you add that to rampant inflation, this is shaping up to be a stressful holiday. Jim Murray has our Turkey Day survival guide.
Like so many kids across the nation, 10-month-old Jamison Trevino is battling RSV.
He was up from midnight to 6 a.m. last night, just inconsolable.
His mom, Gianna, just made a difficult decision. She's canceling Thanksgiving.
I had to make that call, and it was just really upsetting.
I have started running a fever.
This mom was getting set to host the holiday when she came down with the flu.
What do I do? Do I seclude myself in my room, which is like the opposite end of the house?
This was a rough one. This was a rough one.
Whoopi Goldberg, who just returned to The View after getting COVID for the second time, is warning everyone to take care this Thanksgiving.
I tell you, you can get boosted within an inch of your life, and then the next thing you know, you got COVID again.
Doctors say to have a safe Thanksgiving, take a rapid COVID test if you're visiting vulnerable family members. Consider wearing a mask. Keep a window open during Thanksgiving dinner, and stay at home if you're feeling sick. 55 million people are expected to travel this Thanksgiving holiday. That's just shy of pre-pandemic levels. At the airports, so far so good. No major problems yet.
There are more staff in the air travel ecosystem. TSA agents, flight attendants. Hopefully that will make it a smoother Thanksgiving.
Driving is still by far the most popular way to get to Thanksgiving dinner.
You want to avoid the commuters who are heading home from work, mixing with the traffic from the travelers heading in and out of town. Best bet, leave as early in the day as you possibly can, but still drive at times when you're normally awake so that you're not drowsy behind the wheel.
The worst time to drive, Wednesday between 11 a.m. and 8 p.m.
This is Ann Mercogliano. When you go shopping for your Thanksgiving feast this year, you'll find prices way up, a whopping 20%. Last year, the average Thanksgiving dinner cost $53. This year, it's $64.
If you want to save money right now, you could go with a smaller turkey.
Stu Leonard says to save money, avoid prepared foods.
This looks delicious, pumpkin pie.
#1 seller at Stu's. You know what? If you want to save money, make it yourself. As a general rule of thumb, you can save half price by making it yourself rather than buying it from a store. No, I shouldn't say that.
I know you don't want to say that.
If you're traveling with food to your Thanksgiving dinner, don't partially cook it.
Talking about food safety, did you know that you should have everything fully cooked before you transport it, right? You don't want to have things partially cooked because that can really introduce bacteria. So fully cooked and locking lids are your best friends.
I did not know that. And lifestyle expert Marissa Brainy says use no-slide shelf liner when packing baked goods.
But it actually prevents things like baked items from sliding around when you're transporting them to your destination.
Right. Did not know that. The last thing you want to do is show up with a smashed pie. Another way to prevent slipping.
Put like a dish towel down inside a crate. This will help prevent the food from slipping around once it's in your trunk or your back seat. So you can stack it as well.
You want this one?
Yep, but first we're gonna put one more towel, again, just to limit that slippage.
Instead of filling the car with one suitcase per person, use one large suitcase for the entire family.
Did you know that sharing a suitcase can be a huge space saver? And when you use packing cubes, you can divide up the family so you know whose things are whose, and it makes it really easy when you get to your destination.
Bet you didn't know that. 49 million Americans are expected to hit the road for Thanksgiving, the most since 2019. AAA estimates that 90,000 drivers will actually get stranded between Wednesday and Sunday because of problems with their vehicles. So make sure you inspect everything before you hit the road, including tire treads, oil, lights, and your battery. Now you're ready to hit the road for Thanksgiving, just like the Charlie Brown gang.
Over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go.
The last thing you want to do is go through all of the hassle of buying, seasoning, preparing, and cooking your Thanksgiving turkey, only to have it fall apart upon carving. Before we even get there, that's why it's important to trace the turkey's roots. The key to an elite Thanksgiving turkey begins in a country that doesn't even celebrate the holiday. 3,000 miles away on a farm in England with Paul Kelly's family and their honesty. They've been raising turkeys for the last 7 decades.
They're hard to keep alive. I always say they are looking for a way to die.
Paul tells CBS News his turkeys age for 2 weeks. He recommends getting an older bird. In other words, one with more fat on it.
You get a bird like this, you can bounce that up and down, and I've cut the legs, and it's just a solid, mature bird.
Getting the bird that is the right age and consistency is one thing. Knowing how to cook it well is another.
Turkey is not a very forgiving meat. When you take it over the top, it goes downhill very quickly. If you take your turkey out of the oven and that skin is beautifully crisp and golden, you've overcooked the turkey.
Even if you didn't, at this point, it's time to carve.
All you've got to do is just take your time.
That could be relative, considering Paul holds the world record for fastest carver at just over 3 minutes. So if anybody knows the exact method to the madness, it's him.
Take the leg off, take the wings off, take the breasts off. Once you've got them all there, then you're organised, then you can start to carve.
Apparently the results are good.
Well, that's really good.
If you're in America, you don't have to go all the way to the UK for one of Paul's birds. He also runs turkey farms here in the US.
Okay, are we ready?
It's turkey lurkey time.
But Charlie Brown, it's Thanksgiving.
Here's a look at some of the most iconic Thanksgiving moments from pop culture.
It's stuck!
Friends had an episode dedicated to the holiday in each of its 10 seasons.
Oh my God! Monica's gonna totally freak out!
From turkeys stuck on heads.
This is not gonna work.
But this will work.
To a trifle that tasted like feet.
Raspberries, more ladyfingers, then beef sauteed with peas and onions, then a little bit more custard, and then bananas, and then I just put some whipped cream on top.
Everybody Loves Raymond gave thanks.
Ta-da!
How about that, huh? Look how it jiggles.
So did Cheers, where grown-ups at the table started a food fight. You could say a fight was picked in this classic scene from Home for the Holidays. On an episode of The Brady Bunch, the family made a home movie of the Pilgrim's voyage to America.
First, they gave thanks for safely reaching the New World. Then they ate. And ate. And ate. And ate. And ate. And ate.
The holiday gets a more respectful treatment in the Sandra Bullock movie, The Blind Side. The family all sits down for Thanksgiving dinner with Michael Lord, the high school football player they would eventually adopt.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the many blessings on this family. We thank you for bringing us a new friend.
It's Thanksgiving, I got a turkey in the oven.
While in Rocky, the turkey goes to waste.
You want the bird? Go in the alley and eat the bird.
Oh. Oh my God. Oh my God.
In You've Got Mail, Meg Ryan's character has an issue buying her turkey until Tom Hanks saves the day.
Happy Thanksgiving. Henry, happy Thanksgiving.
Garfield was bullish on turkey in this 1989 cartoon.
We'll just put together a little white sauce. A bit of parsley, a dash of lemon juice, some grated onion. Now we'll add our turkey to the white sauce. Make some bread and roll our mixture in the bread and then deep fat fry.
Deep fat fry, deep fat fry. Music to my ears.
And of course, there's a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving full of football.
Come on, Charlie Brown. I'll hold the ball and you kick it. I'm gonna kick that football clear to the moon.
Eat us! Hey, it's Thanksgiving Day. Eat us! We make a nice buffet.
The Addams Family Values gives us a Thanksgiving musical number for a performance at Camp Chippewa.
Perhaps the most important day in our shared past, the first Thanksgiving.
Eat me! And finally, the grand finale.
Hi, kiddo.
Daddy! Just like this heartwarming scene from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Steve Martin finally arrives home for Thanksgiving dinner, bringing John Candy, who has no place to go. A reminder that there are many things to be thankful for, and that giving is also part of the season. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Time for turkey.
Are you ready, drumstick?
Last year was President Donald Trump's first Thanksgiving turkey pardon in the White House.
Drumstick, you are hereby pardoned.
A turkey presentation started 155 years ago in 1863 with Abraham Lincoln. The turkey gifts for presidents became a national symbol of good cheer. In 1963, President John F. Kennedy became the first president to use the word pardon when referencing a Thanksgiving turkey, but he did not actually spare a bird, rather announced that he would not eat it.
Mr. President,
Hello there.
good
How
to
are
see
you?
you.
Good to see you. Whoops.
I knew this would happen.
Pardoning a turkey didn't become an annual event until around Ronald Reagan's time in office.
Look, I had a chance to shoot a bunch of you the other day and didn't.
So where do the turkeys go once they are spared from the holiday meal? Beginning with Reagan, the lucky birds were sent to special farms. At the 1989 turkey pardon, President George H.W. Bush had to assure those in attendance that the bird was going to a farm when the event was picketed by protesters.
I hereby pardon you from the Thanksgiving table.
Turkeys pardoned by President Trump and Barack Obama are cared for by students and veterinarians at Virginia Tech. So rest assured, the turkeys, now honored at the White House, won't end up on anybody's Thanksgiving dinner plate. This is InsideEdition.com.
What's harder, catching the bad guys or wrangling a runaway pig? Washington's Tacoma Police Department found out.
7-3, the pig is being non-compliant.
There were squeals and grunts from the pig and the officers trying to catch him. But eventually, an animal control unit captured the notorious PIG. He was taken to a nearby ranch where he'll live out the rest of his piggy days.
I'm getting a very important lesson just in time for Thanksgiving.
One of the most common injuries this time of year, frequent visits to the emergency room, is because of a dull knife.
A dull knife.
A dull knife.
Not a sharp knife.
Not a sharp knife.
Chef Michelle Dahl Olson with the meal kit delivery service HelloFresh says be careful cutting your turkey.
When a knife is dull, you're going to be pushing really, really hard to get something to go through. And it might not even cut through what it is. It's going to skid off to the side and can easily hit your hand.
It happened to Food Network personality Jada De Laurentiis during a live Thanksgiving show.
Was this great?
Sorry, guys. I'll be right there.
Did you cut yourself?
Yeah, I sliced my finger.
Cut along the backbone to the Pope's nose like so. Now I've done it. I've cut the dickens out of my finger. Well,
Who can forget Saturday Night Live's Dan Aykroyd playing an accident-prone Julia Child making a holiday meal?
Butterball Turkey Talk Line, how can I help you?
The Butterball Turkey Hotline is already taking calls. The command center gets roughly 11,000 calls every Thanksgiving from people having emergencies. Do you get calls from people who've actually injured themselves?
My partners here have gotten some of those wacky calls in terms of maybe we're not the best person you should be calling in the moment, and we would definitely revert people to call 911 if it was that much of an emergency. But we do get those questions on safe carving techniques.
Using a potato, Chef Michelle showed me how you should keep your fingers in a claw position to avoid cutting them.
They should always be curled, and that way I'm holding it into place, and I can put my blade right up against my fingers, and that's going to guide where the cut is.
When the turkey comes out of the oven, wait at least 20 minutes before carving.
It's going to be too hot, you'll either burn yourself or all the juices are going to come rushing out and you're going to have a really sad dry turkey. There we go.
Start by cutting off both legs. Then it's on to the breasts. Chef Michelle switches to a smaller knife to get around all those bones.
And I'm just going to slowly start to work it away from the bone. I like to take the whole breast off so that I can cut it into slices. You can see the grain of the meat. I want to go against the grain. Making my claw again, I can get these nice slices.
Tips for a delicious and injury-free Thanksgiving.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit.
Happy Thanksgiving. Be safe.
Can't find your roasting rack? Top Chef Todd English showed us how to make one out of aluminum foil. Just roll a long piece of foil lengthwise, then mold it into a circle.
So when you take the turkey, you just put that right on top, like that, and it's ready to go.
And here's an inventive way to cook your stuffing. Scoop it into muffin tins. It cooks faster, and each bite is deliciously crisp. Our volunteer gave it a taste test.
It's so flavorful.
Don't want to spend all day boiling, peeling, and mashing potatoes? Just buy some mashed potatoes and enhance them with heavy cream and butter. Then add some small roasted potatoes to make it really special.
And there you go, you're ready to go.
And here's a tip for store-bought gravy. Make it your own by adding soy sauce.
So the soy just brings out the natural flavors of the poultry.
You can also keep your gravy warm inside a thermos.
Spoon it in there, and this will stay warm for hours.
Can't find your rolling pin to make pie? Just grab a bottle of wine.
That's so simple. It's very clever.
And as Todd showed us at the Four Seasons in Los Angeles, you can also use a can. Just remember to remove the label first.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Don't have time to make a pie? Just pick a nice one at your local store. But make it your own by adding caramel sauce, toasted pecans, and whipped cream.
That is so simple.
There's more. Inside Edition producer Alana Stack is a busy mom of 3, and she tried out some of our favorite time-saving hacks. Cleaning all those dirty potatoes is quite a task. Instead of scrubbing them, just load them into the dishwasher. Just make sure you lose the soap. After 12 minutes, they'll come out nice and clean.
Yeah.
And making biscuits is a breeze. Just cut out the shapes with a drinking glass.
That's right. Good job.
Dried out turkey crisis? Revive the bird with warm chicken broth.
It's actually really moist.
Quick and easy tips to take the stress out of your Thanksgiving feast and save you lots of time.
Hi, I'm Johanna with InsideEdition.com, and today I'm here with Linda Palacio, who is a culinary historian, and she's going to give us an image of what Thanksgiving looked like 100 years ago.
Hi, Joanna. You can imagine back in the day, 100 years ago, how long it must have taken for somebody to make a Thanksgiving dinner. People would prepare for days on end for a Thanksgiving feast. And you imagine the hard work it was, because you cook over a fireplace and you had to go out in the fields and harvest all the vegetables. And then kitchen technology took over, and by the end of the 1800s, most people had cast iron cooking stoves, and that quickly was followed by the gas range in about 1910, and then by the 1920s, the electric range came about. Life became a lot easier. You just have to turn a button to light the oven rather than, stoking a fire. Along with that, there were ice boxes, followed in the early 1900s by electric refrigerators. So you could shop ahead and you could store your food.
So previous to this, before ice boxes, and when we were still preserving meats, I understand that's where the mincemeat pie kind of comes from, right?
Yeah, mincemeat was something that was made up until about 60 years ago. A lot of slaughtering went on in the fall. And in order to preserve some of the parts of the animal that weren't used right away, they would use suet and some of the other sweets to preserve the meat. And that was called mincemeat. They would boil it and chop it up, and the beef suet was really very important in doing that. And they would make pie. It would be a savory pie in those days, not a sweet pie. And it actually was associated with the English Christmas celebration. Another reason that it kind of fell off the American table, because they didn't want anything too English, it had to be American. But then as the meat disappeared, the combination became sweeter, in addition of more sugars and honeys and more dried fruits. And brandy, of course, it had to be brandy. That helped preserve it also. And that was also followed by the food technology. Canning, as I mentioned, frozen vegetables.
Linda, why don't you tell me a little bit about how my favorite dish, the green bean casserole, how did that come to be?
And it became such a famous dish. Green beans, I'm surprised. We have fresh green beans here. Probably they would have been frozen in the 50s because frozen foods were really popular then. Campbell's Soups were developing recipes for their condensed soups, and a woman by the name of Dorcas Riley was the head of that research team. And they came up with this recipe for the condensed soup and the green beans and French's fried onions. So the Campbell Soup Company decided to print it on the can of soup, and the rest is, as I say, history, right?
That's so funny, because I would have assumed it was someone's grandma or great-grandma who made this
recipe. And she probably was, but she was working for Campbell's to develop that recipe. So many of the popular recipes that we know come from the food technology industry. Even the pumpkin pie, Libby's was, and many people who make, and now everybody makes a canned pumpkin. The beauty of canned pumpkin is that it's just pumpkin and nothing else, no additives in it. So they were printing recipes on the back of the can, and it made it so easy for people to make a Thanksgiving dinner. I see we have some marshmallows on top of sweet potatoes. Yeah, that was a latecomer. That was a very late addition to the Thanksgiving dinner. Do you have sweet potatoes, marshmallows on your sweet potatoes?
Never.
No.
Never.
Yeah, a lot of people do. It's something I never really liked. And
can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be, how we started putting marshmallows on sweet potato pie?
Yeah, it was interesting. With a lot of the other food technology, it was an invention of the person who mass-produced marshmallows. When they were mass-produced, around in the early 1900s, the owner of the factory, Mr. Angelus, he lobbied the Boston Cooking School to come up with some recipes that used marshmallows. And one of them, lo and behold, was on top of sweet potatoes. And I guess rather, you put sweetness in the sweet potatoes. I don't know why, they're always so sweet anyway, but they just added that to the top and it made a nice sweet crust. And they printed it on the bag of marshmallows, and the rest is history. Same thing happened with something that we're all familiar with, cranberry sauce. Cranberries were used early on, most likely to liven up a gravy or a sauce because they're very tart. And to make a sauce would have required a lot of sugar, which in the early colonial days they didn't have that much of it. Then it all changed. So, eventually we have the well-known cranberry sauce in a can, which is how most people know about cranberry sauce.
In terms of foods that we eat today, what do you think in the next 50 years or in the next 100 years, what is going to go out of fashion?
We are stressed about farming. We're losing a lot of the farms. So fresh vegetables are something that I would hope wouldn't go out of fashion. And they may be different vegetables. We may have a lot more instant rice dishes with easy to grow vegetables. As our climate changes, as the environment changes, as farming methods change, we're going to see changes in that regard.
Thank you so much, Linda. This has been fascinating.
Well, thank you for having me.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Grease fires are the #1 accident, as our Megan Alexander found out.
Oh my gosh.
James Hickman of the Nassau County Fire Marshal's office in New York says putting out the fire the wrong way can just make them worse.
People panic. Their #1 reaction is to throw water on a fire. That's exactly what you don't want to do with a grease fire. It spreads it and can hurt you and spread the fire into the rest of the kitchen. Let's see what happens. The safest and easiest thing to do is to put the pot top back on the pot. It removes the oxygen, it stops the fire.
And always keep a fire extinguisher handy. Everyone loves fried turkey, and this demo shows how dangerous it can be.
Don't put a frozen turkey in the boiling oil. That is the #1 cause of the fires getting out of control around the country. And then you need to gently, carefully, cautiously lower the turkey into the oil.
And one last thing.
Nothing is more important than having a working smoke detector.
The big bird is back. Unlike last year when smaller birds were popular due to the pandemic, many of us will be needing a bigger bird next week, says Nicole Johnson, director of the Butterball Turkey Talk Line.
#1 question that we get year after year still remains the same. How do I thaw my turkey? People don't realize it takes 24 hours for every 4 pounds of turkey meat to thaw in your refrigerator.
So if your frozen turkey is 20 pounds, it'll take 5 days in the refrigerator to thaw. There are reports of turkey shortages across the USA.
Thank God we already got ours.
And some canned goods are also in short supply or very expensive. Imagine Thanksgiving without cranberry sauce.
If you can't find a turkey this year or simply can't afford your favorite Thanksgiving goodies because of rising prices, there are still things you can do to make your meal delicious.
Lifestyle expert Cherie Donaldson.
These are our favorite Thanksgiving staples. If we can't find them this year, what do we do?
So I have some ideas for some substitutions.
In place of a turkey, you could go with Cornish game hens.
1 hen for 2 guests.
Okay.
And you might never go back to the canned stuff after fresh cranberry sauce.
All you need is 4 cups of cranberries, a cup of water, and a cup of sugar. And then you're going to boil and stir until it's candied, just like cranberry sauce.
Fresh is always better anyway.
It is better.
Of course, it matters less what's on the table than who is sitting around it.
Cheers!
Cheers.
Turkey prices are shooting up 14% this year, but would you believe a 25-pounder went for $329? These birds are a little smaller and sell for $200. It's the Rolls-Royce of turkeys.
It even comes with its own branded thermometer because they don't want you to overcook it.
Raised on a farm in Virginia and bred to be the most delicious you can eat. They're even hand-plucked.
This turkey is the nicest turkey that I've come across. I think in terms of flavor, in terms of the experience, and even from like the fat and the drippings that you're going to make your gravy with, it'll make your gravy taste that much better.
Now that's a turkey to rush home for. And for lots of folks, the mad dash has already begun.
Millions of Americans are getting a jump on what is expected to be one of the busiest holiday travel weeks in history. 4 million people are expected to take to the air, and for many of them, it will be their first time flying since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020.
Why are you traveling so early?
The sooner we can get out of Dodge, the better.
Powerful stories that change the way you think. Impactful investigations that change the way you see.
How many times has your car been stolen?
5 times.
Yeah.
What?
Do you think that you're a responsible owner of tigers?
I damn sure do. Heartwarming moments that change the way you feel. I feel amazing. Now available in a place that changes the way you watch TV. Inside Edition, streaming.
What really happened on the first Thanksgiving? Historian Nathaniel Philbrick says it almost didn't happen. It all began with a religious sect who wanted to leave England.
In the summer and fall of 1620, 102 passengers boarded the Mayflower, whom we call the Pilgrims. They intended to take them to what's now New York.
The Pilgrims' progress was ill-fated from the get-go.
Things would go wrong from the very beginning. They would have to pull in for repairs, all sorts of things, but finally they would leave England, and they were way behind schedule. The hope had been to go to the New World in summer and have the summer and early fall to build shelter. But as it was now, it was looking like they were going to arrive in late fall, early winter, the worst possible time to arrive. And on top of all that, they sort of got lost.
It sounds a little bit like modern-day Thanksgiving travel, with the added possibility of starving to death.
It's been a hell of a trip.
Instead of arriving in New York,
If I can make it there.
they arrive at Cape Cod. They realize their mistake, start heading south. but then run into a shoal and nearly crash the ship. They go along Cape Cod, they have a run-in with the Native Americans, and finally they find Plymouth Harbor, and they begin to build their little houses.
So far, so good, but they literally weren't out of the woods yet.
And it is a winter from hell. By the end of it, half of their number are dead, and it's not looking like it's going to get any better come the summer.
It looked like the Pilgrims might meet their end.
Until a Native American named Samoset arrives and, to their astonishment, says, "Welcome, Englishmen." And they realize that they may not have been the first Englishmen in this new land. And he informs them that they're the Pokanokans, that we now call the Wampanoags, are led by their sachem Massasoit. They get introduced ultimately to Massasoit with a translator named Squanto, who's actually been to England and back, and they form an alliance with Massasoit's people. And they get through the summer largely because of this alliance.
So the Native Americans did help the Pilgrims, and this is where the most famous meal in the country comes in.
And then that fall, they have what we now call the first Thanksgiving. And completely contrary to sort of the Victorian era image of the holiday that we have, they did not sit around a table. It was an outdoor affair. Most of the people were Native Americans. They may have had turkeys, but they certainly didn't have pumpkin pie. They had deer, and they sort of ate around the campfire outside.
The first Thanksgiving had more in common with an episode of Man vs. Wild than it did with dinner at your Aunt Lorraine's.
The best way is to scrape off the fur and cook shavings of the meat over the fire.
So we do have this sense of them all sitting around a white tablecloth with maybe one or two Native Americans looking over as the Pilgrims eat. But it was completely contrary to that. It was the Native Americans who had taken them by the hand, literally saved their lives, and were now feeding them.
The Pilgrims owed their survival to a Thanksgiving feast.
For my money, it's kind of cool that there was a first Thanksgiving, and it was a multicultural affair. It was mainly a Native American affair with a few English thrown in.
Of course, the promise of that first Thanksgiving was not exactly long-lasting.
Things would go quickly in a bad direction in the years to come. But for a brief time, there was truly a Thanksgiving with two peoples celebrating together.
But the ideal of Thanksgiving as a time for people to come together and break bread in a spirit of goodwill remains.
And I think this is a very important message for people today to understand, that if it hadn't been for this alliance with the Native peoples, what the people we now call the Pilgrims would not have made it through that first year.
Turkeys hold a special place in our hearts, on our tables, and in pop culture.
Oh my God! Monica's gonna totally freak out!
We love a good quirky turkey moment as much as anybody, so here are some of our favorites. First up, this dog who just maybe loves turkeys more than anyone else on the planet.
This is Molly the collie. She's 4, and we've had her since she was a little pup.
Molly helps her humans herd these guys.
It takes us many hours to do with a few people, and Molly can do it in about 20 minutes all by herself. And she helps keep the turkeys safe.
Molly keeps these 1,400 turkeys in line and keeps them away from foxes. We can only assume this is how turkeys express agreement. Next up, a far more gentle way to celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday.
Come here, baby. Hi, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Oh,
yeah. This is what I came for.
Animal lover Ellie Lax wanted to celebrate Thanksgiving without harming any animals, so she came up with her own Thanksgiving celebration at the animal sanctuaries she founded in California, Tennessee, and Missouri.
From the inception of the Gentle Barn, I established a Thanksgiving event where people like me who love animals, that have adopted a plant-based diet and want to celebrate life together, can come together and form a family of their own.
And plenty of people took her up on the offer. Unlike other Thanksgiving celebrations, the people and the turkeys got to enjoy it.
People from around the world will come here today to cuddle turkeys, cherish life, feed them their favorite treats, eat a gourmet, delicious, plant-based meal that harms no one.
That's the message behind this farm celebration as well. The Farm Sanctuary in New York flips the script on the traditional Thanksgiving meal, letting the turkeys chow down instead.
Thanksgiving is a really horrific time of year for turkey. So today, instead of being served on someone's table for dinner, they'll be eating their own Thanksgiving feast.
And it certainly looks like these birds liked the veggies that were on their tables.
Thanksgiving can be stressful, but Chef Ashton is sharing her Turkey Day tips to make your meal a big hit. Let's start with the bird.
So what do you do, Ashton, if you wake up Thanksgiving morning and realize you don't have a rack for your turkey?
There's a really easy solution. We're going to use tin foil, which everybody has. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a long piece of tin foil, and I'm going to roll it up into a nice log. So I'm just gonna make a nice big circle with this. Just gonna stick it in your roasting pan just like that, and your turkey goes right on top.
Want to know how to liven up bland gravy?
What's your idea here?
Soy sauce. So gravy saves everything. A couple drops of soy sauce is gonna add a nice umami to it and keep your guests eating and pouring it over everything. Just adds a nice little flavor and color.
So the gravy's ready, but if we're baking early, how do we keep it warm until dinner time?
So I have a great tip, and you're gonna use a thermos. Everybody has a thermos at home. All you do is cover this and then pour it into your gravy boat right before your dinner.
How many hours would you say that will hold?
Oh my gosh, 6 or 7.
Wow.
Now let's talk about a Thanksgiving favorite, stuffing.
We're gonna make stuffing muffins, and this is an awesome way to involve your kids in holiday prep. What you're gonna do is scoop it just like this into your muffin tin, and so the center is gonna stay nice and moist, and the outside is gonna be nice and crispy.
What about those pesky potatoes that take forever to peel?
So you're gonna put your potatoes in whole and boil them for about 15 to 20 minutes. Once our potatoes are done, what we're gonna do is stick them in an ice bath for about 10 seconds, and then the skin's gonna come off really easily.
Wow, that'll save you some time.
Yes.
And as you're getting ready to take out the turkey, Ashton has one more piece of advice.
Ooh, look at that.
So a really good tip to make that bird super Instagrammable for your guests is about 15 minutes before your turkey's done, you're gonna take some balsamic vinegar and just brush your turkey with it and then pop it back in the oven. And it's gonna get nice and golden brown and crispy. Now it's time to taste, Megan.
It's the best part. Here we go. Mmm. I can taste that soy sauce. Delicious. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Unattended cooking is one of the leading causes of fires in the kitchen. To help avoid a Thanksgiving disaster, we teamed up with Kidde, one of the largest manufacturers of life safety equipment, for fire safety tips. When cooking, even something simple, stay in the kitchen, says Assistant Deputy Director Daniel Berlant with CAL FIRE.
While this seems like a really low-risk activity, you could easily be distracted. The doorbell rings, your kids scream, the dog is at the door.
He tells Victoria Ricano, if you need to step away, turn off the stove.
What if I'm about to roast something in the oven? What do I need to remember?
Anytime you're baking or grilling, you really never want to leave the kitchen. If you have to for maybe a few minutes, make sure to use a timer.
And if fire does break out?
Just simply try to turn the oven off itself, but never open the door. Opening the door will give the fire oxygen, which would then allow it to spread beyond the oven itself.
As for a grease fire?
People's first reaction is usually to put water on the fire. In this situation, that will actually only make the grease spread further and the fire get larger. So you want to turn the burner off, as simple as that. If you have a lid, smother the fire itself with the lid.
Also, keep a fire extinguisher rated for grease behind you so there's no need to reach over the fire. And know the age of your smoke alarm. Check the manufacturing date on the back. If it's more than 10 years old, replace it.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving from the International Space Station.
Unfortunately, astronauts in space don't get to gather around the table for a Thanksgiving feast with their families. But that doesn't mean that they won't get to eat some of the traditional food that everyone on Earth will. The Texas A&M Space Food Research Facility has created more than 50 menu items for U.S. astronauts for this year's festive meal.
We produce these meals ready to eat so we can have a very long shelf life. We will do all the food prep, we'll package it, and then we'll heat seal it, and then we'll run it through a heat process to sterilize the inside of the pouch.
The International Space Station has already received their food and shared what their plans are.
Here's our turkey right here. It's mashed potatoes, candied yams, green beans, and mushrooms. This is our cornbread dressing. We've got cherry blueberry cobbler for dessert, so that's going to be awesome.
And this space family won't be missing out on Thanksgiving football either.
We're going to have Mission Control send up some live football games for us to watch to complete the experience of Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving traditions are meaningful to everyone. Doesn't matter if you're floating in space or grounded on Earth. Be sure to watch Inside Edition.